Why don't we, since it's this first thing in the morning, or this first thing for me, let's go ahead and have a moment of silence followed by the Serenity Prayer. Serenity Prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
All right, my name is John Kelly. I'm an alcoholic. And my sobriety date is September the 4th, 99. And I am very, very grateful for that. I try to show God my gratitude not by my words, but by my actions. My actions are what show God that I am grateful for this. And we got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to go. We're going to do it, all right? But before we do it, because I know at the end we're going to run out of time and all that good stuff, and I want to say thank you to everybody for your hospitality and your kindness and just everything. It's been great. A little cold around here, but but everybody, I mean, y'all have been wonderful, and hope to see you again. And it looks like we might have the opportunity next year to be back, and it'll be great. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. For a bottom of the barrel, gutter level drunk like me, doing something like this is icing on the cake, right? Goosebumps, the whole works. It's just awesome. Who would have thought? The first time I went out of town to speak, I called my sainted mother on the phone, and I'm like, "Can you believe I'm doing this?" And she's like, "Honey, 5 years ago, we gave you up for dead." And the fact that I get to do anything, whether it's in my town or the next town, is just amazing. That's the power of God. Because it ain't me. Because left to my own devices, I never would have met you folks. And I'm very, very grateful. All right, chapter 6, into action. This is the way I do a fifth step, right? This is the way my sponsor did it to me. This is the way I do it to all my guys. And this is exactly what we do. I've met this newcomer, and I'll just put it into terms like we're doing it, right? I met this newcomer. We've identified. I've assessed that he's an alcoholic. He's admitted he's an alcoholic. He says he's willing to do anything to get what these cats got, right? So I become this guy's sponsor, and we start to go through the steps. He's ready to do his fifth step. I give my guys 1 week to do a fourth step. It don't take longer than a week. How desperate are you? So let's pretend the week is up. We're now meeting. We're sitting down, me and my new protege, and we're going to do a fifth step. I open my book, and this is what we do. Chapter 6, into action. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and discover the obstacles in our path. My fourth step, this information on my fourth step, that's the obstacles in my path. That is the stuff that is blocking me from the power that's going to save my life. It says we've admitted certain defects. We've ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We've put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean we've admitted to God, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our defects. Underline that. That is the purpose of a fifth step. The whole purpose of a fifth step is to discover the nature of my defects. I can sit in the fifth step for hours on end, cry, boo-hoo, get it all out, and have some cathartic experience. But if I leave that fifth step and I don't know the exact nature of my defects, I've done nothing. I got to find the exact nature of my defects. There's many, many forms of my defects, but I got to find the exact nature of my defects. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we've done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. Me assessing my fourth step ain't going to cut it. Because I'm looking at it from my perspective, and my perspective tells me that you screwed me. Right? It is your fault. That's my perspective, right? They're telling me I might need to go a little bit further, right? It says there's doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We'll be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. So I'm going to tell it to you in layman terms. If I skip this step necessary for me to live, I will drink. That's what vital means. Necessary for life. Vital. Somebody rips out your vital organs, how long are you going to live? You're not. Right? This is a vital step. If I skip this step, I won't overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Anybody ever tried that before in the fifth step? Oh, I'm going to tell them all about this, but my God, these skeletons over here, ain't nobody seeing them. They're saying, we've trying to avoid this humbling experience, they turn to easier methods like not telling. How about not doing a fifth step? How about just lying? How about just telling them what, or just agreeing with everything your sponsor says? Yes, I get it. Yes, I understand. Right? When I don't really understand, when I'm still harboring the feeling against you, right? What's the result? Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they failed. It's been my experience, you can't do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. It doesn't work that way. This isn't Luby's cafeteria. It's not take what you want. The steps are in order, right? And I can't skimp on one thing and try to make it up somewhere else. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory, all right, 4th step, but they hung on to some of the worst items in stock. Right? It's like I take an inventory and I see my part. I see my exact nature of my defect, but I was real good about giving God my alcoholism. But by God, I'm going to keep this relationship stuff going. I'm going to keep the lying and the cheating and the conning, but you can have my alcoholism. It doesn't work that way for me. It says they only thought that they had lost their egoism and fear. I don't know. When I got sober, maybe they didn't say it as much as I think they said it, but I sure heard it a lot. And I remember my sponsor. I mean, it seemed like every day that I talked to him, his thing was, your egoism and your arrogance will kill you. And now here they're talking about they only thought that they had lost their egoism and fear. I mean, this is a humbling experience, bearing all to my sponsor, right? And they only thought that they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. Now, just in case you're sitting on the fence, or see if you relate to these next 2 paragraphs, okay? And I'm going to use my name in this story, in these 2 paragraphs, all right? Because I think it makes more sense, or it adds to it. All right? More than most people, John leads a double life. John is very much an actor. To the outer world, John presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. John wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows he doesn't deserve it. People ask me, how you doing, John? I'm doing great. Got 30 days today. Feel great, feel better, work better, sleep better. This is awesome. You know, my family oh man, I love this stuff. I love being sober. Right? I want to enjoy that reputation, but I'm hiding, right? The inconsistency is made worse by the things John does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, John is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. John trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, John pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. John is under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking. You know, me trying to do a half-assed job on my 5th step and hang on to some of those worst things, but me telling you I'm doing great, but I'm still hanging on to those worst things. I'm under that constant fear and tension. I'm going to drink. I can't live that way. You know? I have a guy that I sponsor. He's been in rock and roll bands. He's got long hair. And he's just a cool guy. I would say he's a groovy guy. You know, he's just awesome. You know, and when he first got sober, he's reading this, and he went home and he was reading this page again, and he calls me up, and he didn't know anything about AA prior to getting here, right? So he's not sober very long, and he's still learning the history as we go along and all this stuff. And he calls me up, and he's like, "Hey, John," he goes, I'm reading here on page 73, and you know this guy that wrote the book, this Bill Wilson guy? And I said, yeah. He says, man, I read those 2 paragraphs. He's like, man, he is exceedingly accurate. And I was like, yeah, Mark, he is, man. He knows what he's talking about, you know? He's exceedingly accurate. All right, now we're going to paraphrase a little bit. The rest of this page and on to the next page, they're going to give us some guidelines on who it is to hear our 5th step. You got to remember, 1939, when this book came out, there wasn't good sponsors everywhere, right? More than likely, you sent off for the book and you're in, Podunk, South Dakota, and you don't have a group to go to, but you got a book. And they're going to give you guidelines, precise instructions on who to pick, who to choose to hear your 5th step, right? Fast forward to 2006. We've got big book thumpers. We've got sponsors. Who better to hear my 5th step than my sponsor? Why? Because he's been where I'm at. He knows the way out, and he knows what we're looking for, right? A couple key things on here. The 5th step. It's an intimate and confidential step, right? What is said in the 5th step is between me, my protege, and God. It does not leave that setting, ever. The worst thing that I could do as a sponsor is to take someone's confidence and hear their 5th step, and then I go run off to Michael and dude, you're not going to believe what Jimmy Jack did. No. I would have broken this man's confidence. The chances of him staying sober are slim to none. The chances of me staying sober are slim to none. This is a life and death errand. I take this very serious. We've all, I'm sure, I don't know of it personally, but I've heard through the grapevine, and I've heard, there's one website you can go to and you can read all about it. But, I know this has happened in AA, where people have done a 5th step and it's got out. I don't play that. And my guys don't play that. And the people in my group don't play that. What is said in the 5th step is between me, my protege, and God. And it don't leave there. Right? It's a life and death errand we're on. Going to the top of page 75, the first paragraph, it tells you exactly when you do your 5th step. It says, when we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. My sponsor gave me a week to complete my 4th step. I called him and told him I was done. He said, great, be here tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Click. That's it. We wasted no time. That was as early as we could do it, right? We have a written inventory and we're prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we're about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we're engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approaching this way will be glad to help. They'll be honored by our confidence. Next paragraph, first line. It tells you how you do your 5th step. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Right? And this is where I've moved my book to the side. My guy's shaking like a leaf. And I say, you ready to do your 5th step, big boy? And he's like, yes. I said, great. We put our arms around each other and I say a little prayer and make sure God's with us. And then, I have my 4th step in front of me and we say the little prayer and I'm all nervous and everything. And Cliff says, all right. And he goes, we're going to start with resentments. And I've got my little resentment sheets in front of me. And then he tricked me. I don't know if I really had them in order, but he said, I want you to give me, let's start with the biggest, baddest resentment you got. And he kind of sat back in his chair and I had to flip through my pages to get to the one, because I know the one. And it was my dad. My dad left me and my mom when I was like 3 years old. My dad used to call me up and say he was coming by to pick me up and never show up. My dad would ask me what I wanted for birthday or Christmas and it would never arrive. My dad would tell me he's going to send me money for college. It would never show up. And as the years went by and I got older, I despised even talking to him. I didn't want to have anything to do with him. I told him I loved him and I didn't really mean it, but I didn't give a rat's ass. And because of those feelings towards him, I didn't go around any of his family, and they loved me dearly. My grandma Kelly treated me like a prince from the moment I was born. And because of that, I built up those walls, and I'm saying this stuff, and that day, as I'm saying it, you could tell, I'm hot. You know, and the little veins are poking out, and my sponsor just keeps giving me the rope. He's giving me questions, asking me questions. Now, this ain't like court, my fifth step. What I say can and will be used against me at a later time. This ain't court. And my sponsor keeps asking questions and questions and questions, and I get it all out. And I'm hot. And my sponsor looked at me and said, so... He goes, I didn't realize that when you were born that you were crowned God's gift to little boys. I was like, well, screw you, you know. He's like, well, and he just went on and on and on. Come, you know, my dad's an alcoholic, right? My dad drinks a lot. And he says, well, John, he goes, correct me if I'm wrong, you're an alcoholic. Well, yeah. Well, John, have you made any bad decisions based on your alcoholism? Well, yeah. Well, have you made commitments that you didn't follow through with? Well, yeah. And it goes on and on like that, you know. And I mean, it was bloody. Bloody. You know what I mean? I'm hanging on to everything, and it's just like every question he asked me, yes, I did, yes. He goes, so you're holding your dad up to a higher standard than you hold yourself up to. What gives you, he's one of God's, and I mean, it was bad. And you know what I realized? That by the end of that, I don't know how long we did it. It seemed like forever. It probably wasn't too long. But what I realized that, you know what? My dad's one of God's kids too. And what right do I have to judge that old man? Did he make some mistakes? Sure. He's an alcoholic. We all make bad decisions. He's a human being. We all make bad decisions. Given the tools that he's got to work with and how he was brought up, he did the best that he could do. And what right do I have to judge him? Humbling. I lied to him. I cheated. I conned him. I withheld affection. I refused to talk to his family. I treated him poorly. And I harbored those feelings. Stuff that happened years and years ago. I used those things as a justification for me to act like a jackass. It ain't his fault. It's all on me. And I was like, about this stage, it was like, okay, I need to go home. And, you know, it was like, you know, and we got it all out and got it all done, and I realized, man, I am not the person I think I was. I who think so highly of myself, I'm a schmuck. And then going through the rest of that stuff, I mean, they just all went down like bowling pins. It was like, good grief. You know? All that stuff that I was convinced was on you, it was on me. Even if you harmed me more than I harmed you, you know what? I put myself in that position. It was a humbling experience. What I realize is that my emotions are way out of check, and when my emotions get threatened, I react, and I usually do bad things. I'm extremely selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, and I'll do absolutely anything to get my way. And if it hurts you, so be it. And that is the wreckage of my past. And I got a lot of wreckage to clean up. We did the same thing with my fears. List your fears. And I ran them all down. You know? He says, all right, those are legitimate. He goes, what's the common denominator? Me thinking about me? There you have it. Why are you in fear? Because I get in a situation that I can't figure my way out of. Self-reliance has failed me. That's why I get into fear. He goes, John, God is everything, right? Yep. Well, if your job is supposed to rely upon God, what the hell do you have to fear? Oh, it's kind of simple. He said, too simple for us smart folks. You get into fear, you ask God to remove the fear, direct your attention to what He would have you be. Go help somebody. You'll outgrow fear. Well, that was easy. Sex conduct. Not how freaky-deaky I am. How did I treat the girls? You know, they're not asking you, missionary Wonder Woman costume. They're not asking that, you know. How did I treat the girls in my life? Michael thought, God, I thought we made it through a whole weekend without the Wonder Woman costume. I'll share you with that later. That's just a little line, you know.
I was wondering when it was coming.
Right? But what they're asking me in my sex inventory is, how did I treat those ladies in my life that I supposedly cared deeply for? That I had roused jealousy, bitterness, suspicion? You betcha. Did I tell them I love them when I didn't to get my way? You bet you. How did I treat God's princesses? Like Kleenex. To get my own way. Not a very pretty picture. God doesn't want you ladies treated like that. God doesn't want us men treated like that. And what right do I have to treat one of God's kids like that? I don't. Lot of wreckage. Lot of wreckage. So my fifth step is done. I see the ugly truth. I'm not jumping for joy at this point. My tail is kind of between my legs, and it's, you know. And my sponsor sent me home. If I can remember it seemed like it was just kind of I don't live that far from my sponsor, but it seemed like it was a long way home. It tells you exactly what you do when you get home. Bottom of 75. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, and that means an hour. If Bill would have meant 15 minutes, he would have put 15 minutes. It says, carefully review what we have done. So I'm going to review my work so far. Here's the first prayer. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Tell God thanks. We're getting closer to God. Take this book down from the shelf. We turn to the page which contains the 12 steps, right? Here's the next prayer, or the next instruction. Carefully read the first 5 proposals. So I turn to the page with the steps, page 59, and look at the first 5. Here's the next prayer. We ask if we've omitted anything, for we're building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. I didn't bring my other book, but this is where it got me on my 5th step. So I'm sitting quietly at home, I'm saying the prayers, I'm looking at this stuff, and I look at that next prayer. First of all, it says we ask if we've omitted anything. An old-timey dictionary is good to have. Omit. Omit is different than forget. Hell, I was blacked out most of the 90s. I forgot a whole lot of stuff. Omitting is me remembering something and not sharing it with you. Right? Lying by omission. Omitting is me not mentioning it, right? Me leaving it out on purpose. And then the next part of that sentence. An ark through which we shall walk a free man at last. And there's a couple things that I didn't tell my sponsor, and I'm looking at that sentence. I got two brains. I got a John Kelly knucklehead brain, and I got like this new brain that's being developed, right? And the new brain that's being developed is saying, call your sponsor. The John Kelly brain says, nah. Right? And I keep looking. If you see my other book, I circled that word free. And it's marked in my book today, and it was marked on that day when I did my 5th step. Because I kept thinking to myself, free. And it's like my life is passing before my eyes, and all those desire chips and all those failures at staying sober before, and all those attempts at sobriety, the one thing I never ever was free. Even when I wasn't drinking back in the day, booze owned me. It was still my master. And I keep singing free, and I'm thinking, God dang it. And finally, the new little brain overpowered the next one and says, call your sponsor. Picked up the phone and called him. I said, Cliff, I left something out. And then I learned, he said, I've been waiting for your call. And I thought, God, he's a genius. I learned that he says that to everybody. Don't tell the guys that I sponsor, because I do it to them. Makes me sound really smart, you know. He said, what do you got, big boy? And I said, well, you know when I was living out my mama's house in the country? And he's like, yep. I said, well, I kind of overshot the mark on booze one weekend. She's out of town. I didn't have transportation to get into the liquor store, which is like 30 miles away. And he says, what'd you do? I said, I drank rubbing alcohol. He started laughing. He's like, well, GD, that'll kill you. I said, yeah, I did it more than once. He's like, good, I'm glad you're not dead. You know? And I said, well, is that it? He goes, well, are you going to do that again? I said, no. And he said, okay. It wasn't some deep, dark secret but it was something that I was omitting on purpose something that I was keeping in the closet that I wasn't going to share with a single living soul, and I was ashamed of it, and I was left to my own devices. I was going to keep it to myself. I followed directions. I called my sponsor. We had a nice little chuckle about it. Don't do that. Start your hour over. Click. That's my fifth step. It didn't take all day. Right? So here I'm finishing out the hour, and it says, asking me some questions about my work. Is our work solid so far? The stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? In case you don't know anything about building or anything like that, construction, he's asking, have you done a thorough job or a half-assed one? All right? That's what they're asking. Flip the page. I'm by myself still. I flip the page. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6, right? So we go back and look at step 6. It says, we've emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He take them all? Every one, right? Tough questions, right? My 4th step, that information on my 4th step, that is me. And if I've identified and I can see the truth about me, and all these things, all these resentments and fears and all these injuries, if this is the stuff blocking me from the power that's going to save my life, am I willing to let go of it? You read in the 12 and 12, what do they say about this step? It separates the men from the boys. Read some stuff from Clarence Snyder. What does he say? It separates the men from the boys. It's covered in one little paragraph in the book, but it has way much more meaning. If this is the stuff blocking me from God, am I willing to let go? I can't just give God my alcoholism and continue to harbor all this other stuff. It doesn't work that way. I can't have God have my alcoholism, but I'm going to be a lying, cheating womanizer. Can't do that. Am I willing to let go? Separates the men from the boys. It's huge. I'm re-upping my commitment in step 3 that I'm going to be a student and practitioner of this big book and go on with the rest of the work and do my darndest day in, day out to follow these principles. That's what this step is all about. Huge. It says if we still cling to something we will not let go, good luck. No, it doesn't. It don't say that. Sorry, I don't want to rewrite the big book. If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. There may be a relationship involved, there's some kids involved, I don't know, a work thing that there may be something on there that you're just not quite there. Ask God. Ask God to help you be willing. When it kicks your butt long enough, you'll let go, right? Hopefully, right? So you move to the next paragraph. It says, when ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I'm willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. And that's a novel approach, don't you think? Well, how did you used to pray? God... Yeah, look, God is everything, right? And what do we give God? The garbage, right? We give them the laundry list. God, I need a job, I need a car, I need a woman. God, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. God doesn't want all. God wants everything. He wants my good stuff. He wants my bad stuff. He wants me all in. All in. God, my Creator, I'm willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows, right? I can't ask what God's going to remove, right? God will remove what He's going to remove when He wants to remove it. He may want to use some of my character defects to help you. I don't know, right? I'm just working on my character defects. No, God's supposed to remove my character defects. I'm supposed to follow these principles. If I follow these principles, those defects will, you follow my drift. Grant me strength as I go from here to do your bidding. Amen. That's pretty cool. There's a little amen at that prayer. Notice on the third step, there was no amen. You know why? Because we had a lot of work to do. Now we've got to this point, we say this prayer, making another confirmation that we're going to follow these steps and practice this big book and help others and do all that stuff. We got an amen there. It says, we have then completed step 7. So on one Saturday or Sunday afternoon, in a couple hours' time, I went through 5, 6, and 7 on my own. 6 and 7 on my own. Pretty simple. Now I'm feeling good. You know what I'm saying? Flip back the page, though, and look what it says in the middle of page 75. It's pretty cool stuff here. Second line in that middle paragraph. Once we have taken this step withholding nothing, we are delighted. There's a big weight off me, you know. We can look the world in the eye. I'm not ducking you no more. Hell, I spent a lot of years looking at the tops of my shoes. Trying to get into a relationship and not being able to be honest and be truthful and look people in the eye. Trying to get a job and not being able to look the employer in the eye. Standing in the line at the grocery store hoping against hope that they don't smell the booze poured out of my pores. Do they know I'm drinking, hiding and shifty and shady and sketchy? Now I can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. I could never be alone at perfect. Now I can just chill. I've taken that to a whole nother level, you know what I mean? But back in the day, I had to always be moving. Why? Because I was all full of the energy? No, because I couldn't stand being in my own skin. I didn't like who I was. So if I could just keep moving and moving and moving, maybe I could get out of me. You know what I'm saying? Now I can just be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. The reason the steps, I think, are laid out the way they are, and they give us, next you do a 4-step, you waste no time doing a 5th step. The reason is I get a little bit of hope in the beginning, right? And I cop to being an alcoholic. I get a little hope in step 2. I'd make a commitment in step 3 to work these steps. And these things just kind of fall into place, right? I can't do a 3rd step and sit on it and think this is all God's going to do for me. Don't sell God short like that. You may feel on top of the world at step 3, but don't sell God short because it gets better. I got to keep moving. And the more actions that I take, the more faith that I get. The more actions that I take, the freer I get. The more actions I take, I get closer to this power. It gets better and better and better. Right? And I'll go on when we finish up at the end of the day. God wants my head in these clouds. God wants me to be in the clouds. My feet on the ground. And I'll get to that later on. But the more actions, this is what they're talking about. I am feeling the power right here. I'm feeling it. I'm getting closer to this power. It's great stuff. Keep going for a little bit. Yeah. All right. I'll just go ahead and pass it off to you.
All right.
That's cool.
Cool. Wow, let me pick up right where he left off, because if those promises don't start becoming true quickly, right after that work that he just laid out, there's something wrong. Those things are supposed to be happening rapidly in your life, coming out of that 5th step, doing a sincere 6 and 7. And if they're not, I'll take you right back to a line you may want to underline. Because go back to page 73 once. Look at the very bottom of the page. And if these things aren't happening, you're going to have to ask yourself this question. Is this true or not in your life? It says we must be entirely honest with somebody. Entirely. What does that word mean? Like John said, I have to be all in with one person. You notice it doesn't say everybody. The line says I have to be entirely honest with somebody if I expect to live long and happily in this world. And if I didn't get entirely honest with somebody, who is that somebody? My sponsor. Why do I have to do it to my sponsor? In front of God, I am getting entirely honest with somebody, and I found out the truth about what is really going on. Because I left you off last night, because remember about the truth. There's a trick to the truth. It's going to set you free. But until then, it's going to beat you up. Until you understand the truth about it, you go back to John's situation, until he understood the truth about his father and how he perceived his father and what he was holding against him and all those years, if he didn't understand the truth was going to continue to beat him up. But once he understood the truth, it no longer had him. It no longer owned him. And that's the thing. I've got to get honest with my sponsor. It doesn't say I've got to get honest with everybody. But I have to at least get gut level honest with one more person in this world if I expect to live long and happily in this world. And there it is. And once I do that, those promises will come true rapidly in that fifth step. So now that we've done that 6 and we've owned up and said, all right, here's the deal. I can't fix anything. I can't change my selfishness. I can't change my fear. I can't change my dishonesty. Me working on my character defects, y'all better put helmets on because people get hurt. End of story. I get hurt and I hurt people. Have you ever tried to be less selfish? Have you ever caught yourself where you were so brutally selfish that it made your own stomach turn? And that's it, I'm going to be a better person, and you try your darndest. How'd it work out for y'all? It was like running to a fire and throwing a liquid on it, what I thought was water, and it ended up being gasoline. The flame just kept getting bigger. So I obviously had to have God's help. So while God is doing His part, removing my character defects, I'm going to own up and get busy. And the first thing it's going to ask me to do after I come out of that 7th step is we're going to get busy on the fun ones. The stuff, I'll never forget, I walked into AA the first time and I read through that window shade that they had pulled down with all the steps on it, and I went, I can deal with that. 2, 3, no problem. 4, I don't know about that. I got 5, ooh, that looks kind of tough. 6 and 7, boy, that's simple. That'd be a piece of cake. 8, you want me to write down a list of you want me to go to these people? And I was like, you got to be kidding me. There's the suggested part, right? I should do that, right? Well, let's find out. It says, now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. Where'd that list come from? Have you ever heard these people, they have a ritual after they do a 5th step, they burn their 4th step? Have you ever heard that?
Where'd your list go?
Look what the next line says. We have a list and we made it when we took inventory. You better put the fire out, is what I'm telling you. You're going to need this information. Now, is that going to be all of my list? It's a trick, that 8-step list. Have you ever honestly started writing out an 8-step list, especially after you come out of a 5th step? Because not only did I hurt my girlfriend, and I dropped her, just destroyed her life, left her for dead and walked away and moved on to the next one. Who was there to pick up all the pieces? Her family, her friends. So not only did I hurt her, but my conduct affected all the people around her. There's another hand grenade I dropped. Anybody ever call in sick for work a lot? Like Mondays, like Jim did? I worked at a job that no one did. Michael number 2 didn't show up and take my position while I was there. All my coworkers had to work and pick up the slack while I was home trying to sleep one off. Did I affect their life? My list just got bigger again, didn't it? There goes another hand grenade. It's a widening circle, isn't it? Before I knew it, I'm like, oh my God, can we get to the people I haven't hurt? That's a much shorter list. And my sponsor looked at me and he goes, you know what, big boy? Just about anybody you came in contact with while you were drinking, you probably own amends. Think about that for a second. Your life, if you met me back when I was drinking, I did not enrich your life. You were not left for better. You were left for worse. Get honest. What is the truth about it? I, who thought so highly of myself, found out that I wasn't really a good guy to be around. So we made this list. We subject ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal, and guess what we get to do now? Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage in our past. What does step 9 say? You go back to 59, let's read it because it's interesting, the wording of it. See, 8 says we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Remember, they planted seeds all through that 4-step. Oh, here's some more people that we're going to be willing to go, I'll clean up this. 3 times they mentioned it. We pointed it out last night in reading through. As your 4-step inventory instructions were there, 3 different times they planted the seed. By the way, these are the people we've harmed, became willing to make amends to them. You can go back and look. It's on 67, I think 69 and 70. There's different little seeds planted. So if we do this work, they've already prepared us. We get the willingness. But you look at step 9, it says, made direct amends to such people wherever possible. Do y'all know the difference between wherever and whenever? Go look it up once. Oh, Rhonda, my ex-girlfriend, I happened to stumble across her. I'll get back to her later. I'll get to it whenever. No. God just put Rhonda in front of me. It's a wherever. Do you understand what I'm saying? There is a difference. God did His work. Now it's time for me to do mine. It's not a whenever. But look what it says. Except when to do so would injure them and or others. And I went, there's my out. It may hurt me. And then my sponsor said, you're not another. Dang it. Okay, so what is an amends? That sentence we just read, it says we're going to repair the damage. Now, does walking up to Rhonda, my ex-girlfriend, and saying, sorry for treating you as poorly as I did, does that repair anything? What is that? That's me begging for her to make me feel better about what I've done. That's what it is. Me saying, I'm sorry, please. An amends is not going for forgiveness. I'm not going to make an amends to be forgiven. We're going to touch on that in a minute too. Because that is an entirely wrong. We are there to repair the damage. If I broke my phone, I'm there to fix my phone. I'm not there to apologize to my phone and ask my phone to forgive me for breaking it. Make sense? This is where we get so far off track on these amends, and it's real specific. It says we attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live life on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, here's your 8th step and 9th step prayer. We better start asking until it comes. In other words, if you're not willing, you better start praying awful hard. But here's the hook. You remember how it works? If you want what we got and you're willing to go to any length to get it, look what they're reminding you. Remember, you agreed. Remember, it was agreed that at the beginning you would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. What lengths did you go to for your last drink? Ooh, you want a good bar? I set my bar really high at what lengths I went to get my last drink. I would go to any length to get alcohol down my throat. What lengths are you willing to go to stay sober? And here it is. It's right here. There's some misgivings, no doubt. But here's the thing. The next paragraph is going to tell us we're not going there to shout from the mountaintop, I found God, isn't this great? The last thing, I destroy one of the people in my life, I run over the top of them, and I come back and say, you know what, guess what, I found God, isn't this great? They're sitting back going, oh great. 1 minute you're a con, a manipulator, cheating, and stealing, now you're bringing God into the picture. You know, we don't have a whole lot of credibility going into this thing to begin with after all the things that we've done, and they're telling us we're probably going to be leading with a chin if we do this. We are there for one purpose, to go repair the damage. We're not there to preach. We are there to clean up our messes. Look at on page 77, 2 lines down from the top. If you want to know what your marching orders are from here on out, and there's an interesting word in here. I could have swore for years people said my real purpose is to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Well, let me ask you this. When you came out of your 5th step, were you capable of being of maximum service to people and God? The proof was right there, wasn't it? I was incapable of it. You notice the word it says? Our real purpose is to fit. Underline that. Our job here is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. I obviously do not know how to do that. This work from here on out is going to show you how to get in fit condition in order for you to be able to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. If I want to start running marathons, I don't show up the day of the Boston Marathon in a pair of Nikes and gym shorts and going, give me my number, I'm ready to go. Do I? No, I've got to get in fit condition in order to do that. And that's the same thing here. So, now that we're going to go out and make amends, and here's where sponsorship is critical. Trust me, I've made mistakes and not consulted a sponsor and went out and made an amends, and there's nothing better than going out and making amends again. If you want to go for it, you can rely on my experience and not do it, or you can try it yourself, and I understand the knucklehead Michael comes out every once in a while too, and I've got to prove somebody wrong, but it is not a fun thing. There's some conditions we have to meet in order to make amends, and they tell us all about it in this book. The first condition is if you look on that first paragraph on page 77, 4 lines from the bottom of it. When I'm approaching a man, here's what I'm supposed to be doing. But our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. If John loaned me $100 10 years ago, and I've been ducking and dodging John for the last 10 years, avoiding him neatly, letting our friendship dissolve because of $100, because of my fear and my dishonesty and all of my selfishness because of it. If I'm going in front of John, the reason why I'm in front of John is a sincere desire to set right the wrong. I come out of my fifth step and I realize that, you know what, I treated John poorly, and if someone did that to me, I would be enraged. So I'm going to John, and how do I show John that I have a sincere desire to set right the wrong? You know, John, I'm really sorry about what I did, man. I'm not drinking anymore. Will you forgive me? The only way I'm going to show John that I have a sincere desire to set right the wrong is what? Have some money in my pocket. So if you owe somebody some money, and we're about to touch on that, guess what? Our action, look at the next line. He is going to be more impressed with the demonstration of my goodwill. What does the word demonstration mean? My action. My action, not what's coming out of my pie hole, but my actions are going to be more important than our talk of spiritual discoveries. How about that? There's no reading between the lines there, is there? I am there to make it right. And if I don't have that desire, I don't belong in front of this person. I am not prepared to make that amends. I have to have that sincere desire that I'm there to clean it up. It's all about motives from here on out, because I can't hurt people anymore. If you look down at the bottom of the page, the next paragraph, if you look at the last line on the next paragraph, it says we go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. I love that word regret. My sponsor said there's one word that you can leave out of your vocabulary for the rest of your life. It's called the word sorry. The world already knows you're sorry. You're a sorry SOB. And it's true. Look back at it. But look at this word. Saying you're sorry or expressing regret. Me walking up to John and saying, John, you know what? I deeply regret how I treated you. I was selfish, I was dishonest, I was inconsiderate, and I was full of fear. I jeopardized our friendship over $100. Here is that $100 that I owe you. What else can I do to make it right? If you want to know how to make an amends, you just heard it. Anything other than that, I am just going to create more damage. The less words, the better. If I stick to that plan, I have made an amends. The minute I start talking, before I know it, I'm going to be going, but you know what? If you hadn't done what you did, I probably would have paid you back sooner. Have you ever been in that position before? All of a sudden, I talk myself right into a corner one more time, and no longer God and I aren't there. God's left the building, and I'm there on my island making a mess one more time. Then they start breaking down who we make amends to. And Bill writes this in a way that is frightening. Who are the people that we're not going to make amends to first? Close. Money isn't as bad as those people we just don't like. Some of those people that have done us more harm than we've done them. Think about it. We all have those people in our life. You know, that little never category that we got, I don't see how I ever could make an amends to that SOB. And we all have them. You start going through this, and when we start this thing out, there's some people that have probably harmed us more than we've harmed them, but we have harmed these people. Look how he talks. The question, right in the middle of that paragraph, the question how to approach a man that we hated will arise. Maybe he has done more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen at admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It's harder to go to an enemy than a friend, but we find it much more beneficial. And that's a tough one. You better talk to your sponsor before you make one of those, and you better get God involved before you walk in front of these people. Look at the next paragraph. Under no condition do we criticize such a person. The minute I start talking about what they did, guess what? It's over. Game, set, match. I've screwed it up. Stop, drop, and go. You're done. Nice try. You get to do it again at a later time. You know, simply we tell them we'll never get over drinking until we do our utmost to straighten out the past. So if someone asks you, why are you doing this? I thought you fell off the face of the earth. Then I can tell them, here's the deal. I'm never going to get over drinking unless I straighten out my past, and I am here to clean up the messes I have made. This is why I'm doing it. I have hurt you, and I have the desire to make it right. I want to be that person I could always be. How about that? You know, it says, we are there to sweep off our side of the street. Look at the next page. It says, his faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. You better underline that. If you want to know how you make an amends, it says, if our manner is calm, frank, and open, we'll be gratified with the result. There's a promise. Skip down a couple more lines. Here's another one. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Take that one to the bank. Here's a fun one. Oh man, occasionally they'll offer assistance, but look at this next line. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. I got a little story for you on that one. I had a coworker that I worked with for a lot of years, for about 10 years, and he ended up getting promoted, and he ended up being my boss. And he was more of my friend than my boss, and I actually put him through hell. He should have fired me 3 years prior to when he did, but he finally let me go. And he was the one crying, and I'm consoling him, telling him it's going to be okay. It's all right. I understand. I'm not I should have been fired. I knew I should have been fired 3 years before that. So I sober up, and I'm like, you know what? It sickened me, the thought. I could just vision it tore him up to what it was disturbing how much it affected him. And I just wanted to go clean it up. So I made a phone call, called my sponsor. He said, all right, you can try contacting him. And I prayed with God, and I gave him a call, and he said, you know what, okay, I'll see you. And we met up, and I went to make my amends, and just as I started talking, he said, this is the only reason why I wanted to see you. I wanted to tell you face to face. If I ever see you again, it'll be too soon. And he turned around and he walked out. And I walked out of there, and I was destroyed. Why was I destroyed? Because my motives were all screwed up. I obviously wanted to be forgiven. Because if it wasn't about that, I would have been okay with it. But it crushed my little pride, my little ego, and I didn't realize it, but I truly wanted him to forgive me. I was there for all the wrong motives. Interesting thing is, look what it says. It says, we made our demonstration. We've done our part. It's water over the dam. If that happens, that's all we can do. You want to hear the ironic part of this story is? About 3.5 years later, I'm walking through Minneapolis Airport on a layover. I'm flying up into Canada, and all of a sudden I look over, and guess who's standing right next to me? And I just went, hi, Scott. And he's like, Michael. I said, you got a minute? And he said, you know what? Yeah, I do. And we sat down and had a cup of coffee, and I got to make that amends. And my motives weren't all twisted up. And I was there, and I really wanted to just make it right. God knows what He's doing. End of story. But our motives have to be in check, and that's why sponsorship is so critical. The word motive comes up in a bunch of my conversations with my sponsor. What are your motives? Have you looked at why you're doing this? Because so many times, that's, you know what? That self-seeking stuff crops up. It does. How about the next one? Someone said it. I said, what's the first one we aren't going to do? The guy we dislike, what is the next one? How about money? Anybody owe any money when they sobered up? I've yet to meet an alcoholic that did not owe money. Is there anybody in here that sobered up and didn't owe any money? Good. God. I'm like, how did you do that? It says we do not dodge our creditors, which is something we became professional at, right? I didn't look at mail I never even intended on opening. You ever been there before? You get a stack of bills and you'd ignore it, and you never were going to open it anyway. I ducked and dodged stuff that I never even was going to look at. But here's the thing: we make no bones about it. About our drinking, they usually know. Anybody think they actually hid their drinking from the rest of the world? Visa knew what I was doing. It's like the liquor stores, the bars. They didn't need to call my house. They needed to call the bar I was at every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. running up a bill that it was on every. Think about it. As if they didn't know. Fact of the matter is, I love this. What does it say? Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Like you could harm my situation any more than it already is. On the verge of absolute collapse and bankruptcy, oh yeah, you're going to make this worse by knowing that I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, that'll do it. But here's the thing. If I owe money, how do I go? Let's say I don't have that $100, but I want to make this amends. I have the sincere desire, but all I've got is $10, and I know I can come up with $10 every month to pay John back. And I want to get this thing going. It says arranging the best deal we can. We let these people know we're sorry. How do we let them know? By our action, not by our words. So I go to John and I do the same thing. Except instead of here's that $100, I say here's $10, and what I can do is I'll give you $10 a month for the next 10 months until this thing is paid. And if he accepts that, guess what? I have to send him $10 every month for the next 10 months unless I die. That was the only condition that I can't pay that deal I make, my sponsor said. The only way you're out of it is if you die, so you better not make an arrangement that you cannot keep up because you've done enough of that in your past. The next thing at the bottom, it says we lose our fear of our creditors no matter how far we have to go, for we're liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. You can take that to the bank. I've watched people duck and dodge it and get drunk over it. Fact of the matter is it a long road of reconstruction? Yes. You look back at the history of the old timers. I mean, I remember reading one guy's story, and it took him 35 years to complete his financial amends. Oh well. All I can do is one at a time. I can't look at the big picture like my sponsor said. If you look at it all, it will overwhelm you. Guess what? We're going to take one and we're going to work on one. Next, we're going to pull one off the list and we're going to work on the next one. I can't do 1,000 amends at once. I only can do one at a time. And it may take me 3 lifetimes to get through, and that's okay. I just have to be willing and make them wherever possible. It's that simple. I can't get caught up in the big picture of this thing because most of us have got a lot of wreckage to clean up. I have it scattered all over the country. I was a mover. I got people all over, you know. The next one is perhaps we've committed a criminal offense. Say that isn't so.
Wrong.
Got any criminals in this room? Convicted or accused, I always said. This is an interesting one. When I sobered up, I was wanted in 8 different places, 8 different courthouses in Dallas-Fort Worth area. I fell into this category completely. And they talk about it, they take innumerable forms. And we can get in all sorts of trouble. And mine was from bad stuff to ridiculous stuff like no insurance, no inspection, no registration, and a failure to appear. I had like 4 of those in Dallas alone. Got pulled over and my car had no tags, no inspection, no registration. I had no insurance, and then I didn't show up for the court date to add the cherry on the Sunday and just skip, and they take all sorts of forms. But here's the thing. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Yes, there are. And I'll give you some examples. Reminding ourselves we have decided, anybody know where this one's going? Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. They can't get 2 pages without reminding us on that. Why? They're dealing with alcoholics. It says, here's the prayer about the legal stuff in our 9th step. We ask that we be given the strength and direction to do the right thing no matter what the personal consequences may be. Now, does that mean I'm supposed to just go throw myself at the court? No, that isn't what they're saying. And here's where sponsorship is critical. But I will give you a few stories. It says we may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing, we have to, we must not shrink at anything. I had run from a long time, and I knew that when I sobered up, I wasn't a very good runner. And the other thing I found out was I was really tired. And I looked at my sponsor and I said, you know what? I want to clean this stuff up. And he's like, do you know what the consequences are of this? And I said, yeah, I'm probably going to be doing some jail time, and who knows? They may get a bad sense of humor and send me to prison. That's okay. You know what? I'm willing. I just want to clean this up. I'm living in a halfway house. I'm basically homeless and unemployed and unemployable. You know what? Let's give this a shot. And I proceeded to start cleaning this stuff up one by one. And I can't tell you how many times I said goodbye to everyone at the halfway house that I'm living at, and told my buddy Lewis, you can have all my stuff. It was okay. Nice to meet you. You know, if anybody calls, tell them where I'm at. I'm heading to this courtroom today. Most amazing thing is I went to Dallas on $4,000 worth of warrants, and I was, okay, I can do 40 days in jail standing on my head. Shut the door. It's okay. I've been there before. And Dallas will give you $100 a day. And I'll never forget, I walked up and this woman behind the counter looked at me and said, darling, you ain't going to jail today. And I'm like, oh man, what am I going to prison? And she's like, no, either you're going to pay this off or you're going to work it off. So I got to spend July and August of 2000, which it stayed over 100 for about 70 some days in Dallas. And I got to pick up trash in the parks in Dallas for a month and a half to pay it off. That left me with a resentment. I wanted to go to jail. Jail's air conditioned. I don't have to do anything in jail. It's amazing. Be careful what you wish for. So needless to say, I spent many days, someone was talking about it last night, I spent a few days sober in jail, and things worked out. Now I've got a bad story for you. I've also seen the other way go around. And I'm going to tell you someone's story, and he's given me the permission to use it. He said, if it helps anybody, my God. I was sponsoring a guy in that same halfway house that I was in. He had 2 years hanging over his head. I was working with him, got him busy. I said, don't worry about it. Let's get you moving. Let's get a foundation underneath you. We need to look at it in a little bit of time. Time started coming up, and I said, yeah, we really got to start looking at it. Yeah, a little later. Yeah, a little later. Well, before he knew it, he ducked and dodged it so long that he went over and knocked over 6, 7 11s in a week period, and now he's doing 10 years in Abilene on top of the 2 years that he had. Learned from that experience. You know, there's one way of doing it. Then we've got however other people are involved. Here's an interesting one. Here's where it would injure them. I can't throw someone else under the bus to set right one of my wrongs. When other people are involved, I can't do it. And there's general principles that we're going to look at here. You know, they'd have that story of the guy who stole money from his rival and said he never got it, and he ruined him, and it was going to affect his business partner and his wife. And here's what this man had to do. It said, before taking the drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. So if this is going to involve other people, I've got to do it. My niece was 10 years old when I sobered up. I wanted to go make amends to her. Guess who I had to go to? Her mom and dad, to say, you know what, because it was going to affect them. I had to secure their consent before I could get in front of my niece and make amends. This poor girl grew up with her uncle being an alcoholic. I had to secure their consent. If I obtained permission from the others, have consulted with others, my sponsor, asked God to help, the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink. Real specific instructions. Then we look at the domestic issue. Now the domestic troubles, it gets dicey. And if you look on page 81, in the middle of it, it doesn't say, do we go, honey, I've been cheating on you for the last 10 years. Do I do that? There's some principles here. Whatever the situation, we have to do something about it. If we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, should we tell her in detail? Undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. But I can't go, you know what? To make myself feel better, I can't walk up to my girlfriend and go, you know what? I've been cheating on you for the last month, sleeping with your sister. Who's that going to help? Think about that. I'm going there to make myself feel better. Is that going to injure, and here's where sponsorship is critical. And it says, the thing is, I love how they put it, we ought to say that we have no right to involve another person because she's going to want to know who she is and where she is. Oh yeah, she's going to. But here's where sponsorship is key, and there isn't anything set in stone, but you know what? We have to check our motives of what we're doing and if we're going to cause harm to other people. And it's critical. If you flip over the page on 82, there's a little prayer for it. Right in the middle of that first full paragraph, it says, each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Keep it always in sight. We're dealing with a terrible human emotion, jealousy. You look down at the next paragraph, it says, sometimes we hear an alcoholic say the only thing he needs to do is stay sober. Anybody ever heard of a living amends? Do they have those in Kansas? It's a lovely thought, isn't it? Here's how I'm going to make it right for you, John. I'm never going to take another drink as long as I live. That'll fix that $100 I owe you. Who's that all about? Is that not the most... Think about it. Look at it at its core. That is the most selfish statement you could make in front of God. Here's the deal. I'm going to help this person by me not drinking anymore. I'm going to fix how I've damaged them by me not drinking anymore. Oh yeah, that's going to do it. No, it's not. They talk about the alcoholics like a roaring tornado, or like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections are uprooted, selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We think a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. Does that not say it all right there? No, just because I'm not drinking does not fix anything of the damage that I've created in the past. End of story. Now, is there such thing as a living amends? Yes, and I'll explain it to you. I go to my mother and I've destroyed her emotionally. I mean, that woman if the phone rang at 2 a.m, most of the 90s, she was convinced it was the call that her son was dead. And I went to her and I said, I deeply regret what I put you through. It was all about, I was selfish, inconsiderate, and full of fear and just dishonest. What can I possibly do to make this right? And she said, you know what? I want you to continue to do what you're doing right now and be that man that I always wanted you to be. Is that a living amends? Yes. I mean, and after I walked away, I thought, man, I got off easy. And then it dawned on me. God went ka-thunk, and I went, God, I should have just paid her $1,000. Oh my God. Keep doing what you're doing means forever. That's a long time. She gets to decide what makes it right for her. I don't get to decide what makes it right for her. All right. Wow, we're running out of time. The next page says our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. It says if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. I love these promises. People read it like you're going to get them when you get a desired chip. No. You're going to get this when you do this work. If you're painstaking about this phase of your development, these amends process, you're going to know new freedom and new happiness. You will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. You'll comprehend the word serenity, and you'll know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see that our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us, like John said, waking up. I loved that line. Just waking up used to baffle me. It says we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises we think not? They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. How are we going to get these promises? Working painstakingly at our amends, these promises will come true. If we don't, they won't.
Sorry. Let me say two things before we get out of here for a little break. That was beautiful stuff. One of the things I try to teach my guys, and what my sponsor taught me and his sponsor taught him, is like on page 83 where it says there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. From the day that I did my third step, my actions today show God my gratitude. My actions today show God how willing I am not to pick up that first drink. God wants to see me in action. Tom Iverser says, when faith and preparation collide, the results are what God does. The more actions I take in these amends, the more amends that I take, the more faith that I get. I got a big bad amends. I walk into that amends. I talk to my sponsor. I've prayed about it. And I go do that amends that seems hopeless. God does the results. I walk away from that amends. Boom, more faith. I get to pass that down to the new guy. This is all about we must take the lead. The spiritual life is not a theory. We must live it. The vitality of AA is because not only do we study this information, we go out and do this information. We take the lead. We live this. And our families are reconvened, and these friendships are patched up, and these work relationships are done. This is the best stuff right here. And these promises right here you just read are amazing, amazing promises. But don't fall into the trap like we did when we started coming to AA way back in the day. Just because your butt's in AA, this ain't your birthright. The promises of the 9th step. Just because you show up doesn't mean that stuff's gonna happen. Excuse me. I have to do the work to get those promises. Just because you show up, you don't get them. You got to do the work. It says we got to be painstaking. Very important stuff. Thanks. Let's take a little break and then we'll come back and do the rest. Thank you very much. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. There's another guarantee in AA right there. They will always materialize if we work for them. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests that we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. Well, there's no new information here. We know how to do an inventory. We just did a 4-step, so we know how to do an inventory, right? And we've been making amends, so we know how to set right the wrongs, right? This is, now that we're in this process of making amends, now we're going to say, how do we live sober today? This is a practical program of action on how to live sober today. All right? What and when is the 10th step? It says, we vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So as I begin my 9th step, I begin my 10th step. I've seen all the stuff blocking me from the power. In my 10th step, I'm going to keep that stuff current so I don't have stuff blocking me from the power. It's pretty simple. We've entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. I just don't get to step 10 and all of a sudden I'm understanding and effective. It's not an overnight matter. We're going to work at it. Right? How long do you do a 5th step? It should continue for a lifetime. So today and hopefully every day after, I do a 10 step. A good 10 step. Right? So now they're going to tell you what we're going to watch for. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. All the stuff that we've identified in my 4 and 5, right? No new information. This is what I'm going to watch for today. When these crop up, they're going to crop up. I'm going to get resentful. I'm going to get in some fear, right? I'm going to be a little dishonest or whatever it is. They're going to crop up. Now they're going to lay out exactly what we're supposed to do. First, we ask God at once to remove it. Ask God, right? Then we discuss it with someone immediately. Talk to my sponsor. Make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Check. We know how to do that, right? Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. That's a 10th step. Easy stuff, right? You know where I'm going to screw up? I'm going to be at work, or let's just use the work example. I'm going to be at work and I get crossways with one of my coworkers, right? He does something wrong to me, I retaliate, and now we've had words and it's a big ugly mess, right? I've done some wrong. Walking away from that experience, I know in my heart that I shouldn't have spoke to him that way, right? My John Kelly brain says, say a prayer, ask God to remove it. I say a prayer, ask God to remove it. I know I've done something wrong to him, so I go to this man, Jimmy Jack, I wronged you, blah, blah, blah. How can I make it right to you, right? I'll do that. Then I'll turn my thoughts to who I can help. I can do that. You know where I'm going to screw up? I'm not going to call my sponsor. You know why? Because I don't want him to know that I screwed up. My little ego and my arrogance. See, I'm a big book thumper. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to call Cliff and say, Cliff, I stepped into it again. You know how quickly it can unravel? A few weeks ago, I called my sponsor like 9:30 in the morning, right? Everything's great, not a cloud on the horizon. I got a big work day ahead of me. Everything's cool. We're talking. It's just a beautiful, beautiful little love fest on the phone, right? I hang up the phone, right? About 10 minutes later, a guy that I'm working with calls me, and he started hitting my little buttons, and I'm kind of it just spiraled quickly out of control. And he said some things he shouldn't have said, and instead of me pausing, I retaliated, and I said some things that were I was brutal. So from being fine to 10 minutes later, I'm nuts, right? So I hung up the phone with my buddy, and I'm like, God dang. So I said a little prayer, call Cliff. Cliff, we got to talk. And I started telling him, he's like, well, good grief, John. 15 minutes ago, you were on top of the world. What happened? I said, well, this is what I did. And he's like, man. I had to take care of it. This is how I keep my day current, right? This is how I don't have the luxury of a normal person to let day-to-day resentments and fears. See, my brain, my stupid brain, my John Kelly brain says, oh, that's no big deal. Oh, that fear, I'll handle it. Oh, that, I don't have the luxury of normal men to do that. I get into fear. I need to ask God to remove it. I need to talk to my sponsor and say, you know what? This stuff about the work is really killing me. I'm in so much fear. I don't know if I'm going to have a job. I need to let him know. My actions of me following these little 4 principles, right? Saying a prayer, talking to my sponsor, making amends, turning my thoughts. My actions show God that I'm willing to go to any length not to pick up a drink. I imagine God creating universes in heaven. And God sees me pray. He just keeps creating universes. But when he sees me follow these actions, now he pays attention. I can pray myself to the liquor store. God wants to see me in action. All right? Now check out these promises. It says, we turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Now look at this stuff right here. Important stuff. Larry, just keep underlining, big boy, all right? And we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For this time, sanity will have returned. The promise of step 2 has come true. We'll seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as if we're a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. And we'll find that this has happened automatically. We'll see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. I'm not doing that, folks. I'm not managing a trigger list. I'm not avoiding temptation. I'm not trying to not drink. I'm following these directions in this book, and this happens. That's God's deal. When faith and preparation collide, the results are what God does. Right? It just comes, that is the miracle of it. What is the miracle? The miracle is the mental obsession has been removed. Right? It says we're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. Where am I going to go on God's green earth where I'm not going to be tempted if I'm managing the drink deal? What if I was like Bill and I had to add telephones to my trigger list? What if I'm like Fred and I got to add doorways, thresholds to my trigger list? Fighting temptation. Where am I going to go? I flew to San Juan, Puerto Rico, knew one soul. By the end of a week, I was the mayor of Old San Juan. I knew every shady character, every dive bar. I could get my groove on. Where am I going to go? I don't have to worry about that because I ain't fighting it and I ain't avoiding temptation. God's taking care of me. I do my part, God takes care of me. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We're neither cocky nor we're afraid. That's our experience. That's how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Work and self-sacrifice for others, right? Great stuff. You can bet your life on those promises you do this work. Let's do a little test here. Let's do a little audience participation. Third step prayer is on page 63. So hold your finger on page 84 and 85 and pick up page 63. We're at the turning point, right? It's step 3, right? I'm either going to go do it my way, drink myself to death, or I'm going to make a commitment in step 3 to work these steps. 21 pages later, I just got those promises on the 10th step. I'm free. The mental obsession has been removed. I am a recovered alcoholic. 21 pages of work. You got somebody struggling in AAs trying to stay sober. You got to ask yourself one question. Is my life worth doing 21 pages of work? Because that's all it is. Hell, we got comic books thicker than this. 21 pages of work will get you from a hopeless state of mind and body to the power that saves your life. Huge stuff. Now check out the next paragraph. This is what happens when you don't follow directions, right? It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. I'll put it in my language. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on my ace, you know? See, what happens is I start rocking along and I start feeling the power and I start getting all this good juju and stuff, and my little John Kelly brain says, you know, man, I've been kicking butt for so long, I need to take a day off. I need to chill. I don't need to go to the big book study tonight. I need to watch ER, or I need to do this, or maybe I need to go to a Maverick game, or maybe, you know, I've been working so tirelessly in AA, I need to rest a little bit. Rest on my past accomplishments. That's what laurels means. Screw what I did yesterday and screw what I got planned tomorrow. I got today. That's the only day I got. My actions today show God. So if I start getting all high and mighty thinking, oh, I've been kicking butt for so long, I'm going to take it easy. All I'm doing is looking up to God saying, thanks, big boy, I got it from here. We're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. Cunning, baffling, powerful, waiting for me to slip up. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry this vision into all of our activities. Every day. Not some days, not most days, every day. And there's a must. What do I must do? I must carry the vision of God's will in all my activities. Not only at my AA group, but I need to carry this vision into my work, to my family, to people in traffic, people at the grocery store, people I don't know. Got to carry this vision into all of my activities. Here's the prayer. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. There's the 10-step prayer. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. That's a 10th step. Throughout the day. Are you getting into some resentment? I call my sponsor. Say a prayer. Make amends. Turn my thoughts to someone I can help. Throughout the day. I know in the 12 and 12, it has it worded a little different. I don't have that luxury to wait till the end of the day. I love it when guys call me. I like my guys calling me early in the days to start off with so they can start practicing, right? But, you know, we get this call every once in a while, and it's like 9 o'clock at night, right? And my knucklehead's calling me, and he's like, oh, man, I had like words with the boss this morning. My day just spiraled out of control, and me and my boss were crossways all day long, and blah, 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 and I'm fearful about going before the judge, and da, 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 da. And I'm like, what time is it? Well, it's 9:30 at night. This has been going on since 8 o'clock this morning. You're just now getting around to calling me? Who do you think you are? Okay, well, let me ask you a couple questions, big boy. How much time did you spend with God today? Well, you know, like I told you, I mean, I had to work. Oh, okay, so you didn't spend much time. God is everything, right? Well, yeah. So God is everything and you spend no time with God. Oh, okay. Okay, I see. Who have you helped today? Well, so you don't follow directions in the big book and you let all this stuff pile up all day and now you're going to call me late at night and tell me your problems? I'm sorry. Go talk to God and go straighten this out. Go help somebody. Click. Biggest butt Jewing I've gotten in 7 years is 10-step stuff. I arranged my weekend one time a long time ago. Got out of work early and trying to have some time with my sister and her kids, and it's going to be a great time. I got so much work that I don't need to be taken off on that Friday, and I just arranged life to suit myself. And by the time I got to my mama's house, my sister's there with her kids. The kids are snot-nosed and sick, and they're cranky, and I'm coming down with the cold, and I'm cranky, and it's just not going the way I expected it. And I'm calling my buddy Kurt, and I'm calling my buddy Myers, and blah, blah, blah. And that's on a Friday, Saturday. By Saturday evening, I'm like, Mom, I got to go home. You know, this is not working. You know, I got to go home. I still don't call my sponsor. Finally, Sunday night, I call my sponsor, and he let me get it all out. And then he asked me, who in the hell do you think you are? You got all this work stuff eating your lunch. You've arranged your life to suit your way. You need to be doing this. You need to call your boss or talk to your boss on Monday and tell him you're sorry. You apologize for skipping out on Friday because they needed you. My God, you're not a normal man. You can't let this stuff pile up because you know what happens? This stuff piles up. I still think I'm connected to the power, but somehow, somewhere along the line, unbeknownst to me, I get disconnected from the power. My life starts to spiral out of control. Why? Because I'm running the show. That's when suddenly comes in. That's when I walk across a threshold and suddenly happens. Every day since that day, I bet 99% of the days since then, I'm in contact with my sponsor. I work a lot on my own a lot, so I don't really screw things up at work too much. So a lot of my days are pretty easy, but you know what? I'm always in contact with my sponsor. And one of the cool things is that when something does happen, when that resentment does crop up or that fear or that thing, phone call. It's a done deal. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, here's a promise, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. And I call that the God groove. If I'm following directions, getting in the game, doing this stuff, I'm in that groove, you know. The days start just adding up, right? I'm in that groove. Things are just kind of flying by, you know. I'm doing a commitment here, speaking here, helping a newcomer here, boom, 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 making amends. The days just start to pile up. I get in that little groove, that little rhythm, right? We got any basketball fans in here? Athletes get into the groove, right? And I'll never forget, man, I think it was Michael Jordan's last, we've seen it a bunch from him, but it was like it was last year of playing, and they're playing the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. And Mike is on fire. Mike is hitting threes from all over the court. He's unconscious, right? And there's a one shot, the shot clock is winding down. Reggie Miller's in his face. Mike is way behind the three-point line. And he's got to make this bucket. And he throws up, he just launches one, a high arcer. And it is nothing but the bottom of the net. And the camera shot, it's on every TV show and every magazine, is Mike running down the court going. I got no clue how that went in, you know. Like, he was in the groove. I can get in the groove in AA. I stay tied to my sponsor. I work with the newcomers. I make my amends. I do a 10-step, and I'm in this groove. Some pretty cool stuff. To some extent, we've become God conscious. We've begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further, and that means more action. Step 11, I'm going to do the first part of 11. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. All right? Prayer and meditation. Prayer is me talking, and meditation is me listening. I do a lot of praying, and sometimes, you know, it's my tendency to do a lot of praying and not much listening. It's like, you know, when I'm coming up here, we're coming up here planning our trip, and I asked Jimmy Jack for directions on how to get to Pratt, Kansas, right? And I said, Jimmy, I've never been there. Can you give me detailed directions on how to get to your lovely city, right? And I say, Jimmy, let me get a pen, right? And so I get my pen, and Jimmy starts to talk. And as Jimmy starts to talk, give me directions, I start monkeying with the TV, right? I ain't listening. A lot of times I pray and ask God my little laundry list of needs and wants and desires and all that stuff, and I don't sit around long enough to listen. Some people say, well, John, I don't know how to meditate. You know how to worry, don't you? Well, yeah, everybody. Then you know how to meditate. Worrying is just negative. Think about when you're worried about something. You're locked in, man. You're just focusing on that thing and that thing only. That's meditating. The meditating they're talking about here is positive. And think about who wrote this. Bill Wilson wrote this chapter. Bill Wilson, who considered himself an atheist or an agnostic when he got sober, right? And here he's going to give us valuable instructions on how to do some prayer and meditation. And they're going to lay it out to us. And it says, we shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. Here's a promise. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. I'm going to learn how to do it. After my fifth step, part of the stuff that my sponsor had me read every day for like 30 days, he wanted me to read pages 76 to 88, the end of that chapter. Did he want me to memorize it? No. This is a practical program of action on how to live sober today. He wanted me to read it over and over and over so that I could learn the practical program of action. I got to have a proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. So I'm going to do this little first part and pass it over. So they're going to tell us what we do at night. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Constructively. That's a positive term. Not destructive, which is the opposite of constructive. I'm going to review my day positively, right? And they're going to ask me some simple questions. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? So I'm getting ready to retire for night. Got my little big book open, and I'm going to start answering these questions. And my experience has taught me if I do a good 10, this part of 11 is pretty simple. If I'm skipping on my 10, I got a lot of questions to answer right here. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm doing a thorough 10-step throughout the day with my sponsor, this stuff is a piece of cake. But it's some valuable questions because I'm not going to be perfect on my 10-step. Never, ever. So it asks us if we were resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid. Do I owe an apology? Have I kept something to myself which should have been discussed with another person at once? Have I done something that day that I should have discussed with my sponsor that I kept to myself? That'll catch you. It's kind of like a catch for my 10th step. What falls through the cracks, you know? Were we kind and loving toward all? Oh. Hey, I'm a work in progress, man. Catch me in rush hour traffic someday, and I ain't kind and loving toward all. I don't really flip people off anymore, but I do a lot of talking in my car. And it ain't spiritual. You know what I'm saying? Kind and loving toward all, you know. What could I have done better, right? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? There's a tough one. Let me ask you a question. When you woke up this morning, who'd you think of? I woke up this morning, my first thought wasn't of you. I would love for it to be, how can I meet these people's needs? I would have loved it. My first thought this morning was, good God, I gotta pee. I need a cup of coffee. You know? Look, I'm my biggest fan. I think of myself most of the time. You know? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others? See, there's an alternative for thinking about myself. The alternative is what I could do for others. Right? Of what we could pack into the stream of life. Look, I consider this experience, our first time doing this is packing into the stream of life. You know what I was like in the 90s? I was not packing anything into the stream of life. I was withdrawn. I took Timothy Leary tune in, turn on, drop out to a whole nother level. I was not a part of society. I was in a hovel guzzling vodka. That's what I was doing. Now I get to see what I can pack into the stream of life. I've met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the 7 years. I get boatloads of emails. I get tons of phone calls. I got stuff going on all the time. I need a longer day. Pack into the stream of life. That's great stuff. But we must not be careful to drift into worry, remorse, and morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. Worry, who am I thinking of? Self. Morbid reflection, who am I thinking of? Self. If I'm worrying and morbid reflecting, I'm being selfish. If I'm being selfish, how am I going to help you? I'm not going to help you. If I'm not helping you, how am I going to stay sober? I won't stay sober. After making our review, here's the prayer. We are a prayer in the 11th step. The first one. We ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. That's what we do at night. It's pretty simple stuff for us smart folks.
All right. Well, now we've learned how to end our day. And it's kind of interesting in step 11. Did you ever notice that you'd think, well, I'm on step 11, I'll start tomorrow? Doesn't that, you notice it? No. It says, as soon as we make amends, we're on step 10. Once we're on step 10, we're on step 11. So you're obviously awake already. So how we're going to begin it? We're going to start off right away at night. I always wondered why they had night before they had the morning. You're up and running. You're on 11. Get going. Tonight, here's how you're going to shut down the day. And so many times I've heard people say that, I do my step 10 at night. No. That part about step 11 at night is we're recapping, looking how we did at step 10 throughout the day. And we're looking at how can we do it better for tomorrow, the constructive review. So now that we're into tomorrow, how do we begin this thing? It says, upon awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. I love this next line. We consider our plans for the day. You notice it didn't say we plan out our day. If they wanted you to plan out your day, that's what they would have said. You notice the word they use? We're going to consider our plans. Have you ever planned your day out before? And it's amazing. Your plan and God's plan sometimes aren't the same at all. I consider my plans, and it's amazing. I'll have a day planned out, and all of a sudden I got my phone ringing, and my guy's got me going somewhere. I got a new guy somewhere. My plans have changed. I'll consider them. It says, before we begin, here's a cool little prayer. What a great way to start a day. We ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. So as I wake up, and the first thing I'm thinking about is me, what do? I say a prayer and say, okay, God, enough about me. Direct my thinking, because my thinking is directed right back towards me by default. So now I'm asking God, here, I need you to direct my thinking, and here's what I'm asking of you. Get me out of me. Get self-pity away. Get dishonest and self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. How about that? My brain is not just to keep my ears apart. Here we're actually going to get to use our brains, but we're going to ask God to direct it so I don't screw this thing up. Pretty cool. Here's the promise. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. There's that word again. From here on out, we are on a constant motive check. Constantly. It started out in that 9th step, and it's all about motives. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Just about every day, that's my day. I'm really not sure what direction I go, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm asking God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or decision. So now that I've laid it out for God and I've done my praying part, now I'm going to do my meditation part. It says, we relax and take it easy. I'll be darned. The book's telling you to do it. Why is it that we never do this, but halfway through the day I'm calling my sponsor and saying, I'm just wore out. I really need to stay home and kick back tonight instead of going to the meeting. I need to relax and take it easy. Well, weren't we supposed to do that this morning? It tells us, you had your time to relax and take it easy, now get busy. And here it is. We relax, we take it easy, we don't struggle. And I don't know about you, did anybody hit the ground running on this meditation thing? I was not that guy. I mean, if I could relax and take it easy and keep locked in and focused and in tune with God for 3.5 minutes, that was like amazing right away. I mean, and I always call my sponsor, I'm like, God, this is hard. I'm so scatterbrained, I'm all across the board. And he's like, you know what? Look at this next line. We're often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. Underline that. So if your new guy is having problems with this, guess what? Bring him right to this. This is practice. Remember, we're going to grow in effectiveness here, in understanding. This is going to take a time. It's going to take practice. It's a discipline. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still in experience, having just made conscious contact with God, it is probable that we're not going to be inspired at all times. We might pray for this assumption and all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Oh my God, underline that. No, really. God told me this morning I need a Porsche because I can get to the meetings quicker. It's amazing what we come up with early on. Early on, I'm not sure what's God's will and what's my will, and that's when I talk to my sponsor. It says, nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. And there it is again, as time passes, as we work at this, we come to rely upon it. So how do we end our meditation period? We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be. God, please show me what I'm supposed to be doing today. I need your help. And that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no requests for ourselves. More prayers. How about that? We may ask for ourselves only, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many have wasted a lot of time in doing that. It doesn't work. You can easily see why. Anybody who's done that? My life was praying all about me to God. And, he must have got really tired of it. The next paragraph is going to tell you about, we can bring our wives into this, group meditation with your family members. And the interesting thing is it says, if we belong to a religious denomination which requires definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. But you notice that it says we attend to that also, but it doesn't say we omit what we've covered up to this point and do what that says. It says, if you have other things to do, do that also. Key word. It tells you how to start a day, how to end a day. Step 11's got it all covered, right? You know what else Step 11 does? It tells you how to get through the day. Look at the next paragraph. As we go through the day, highlight. Here's a word you want to underline, circle, exclamation point. We pause. It's the most powerful word you will ever have in your life. We pause when agitated or doubtful. What did you normally do when you got agitated? Oh no, I drank after I did something else. You agitated me and I came back at you and ran over the top of you and I straightened you out as fast as I could. And then after the dust settled, I thought to myself, wow, should I have done that or not? Does anyone else do that stuff? Act and then think if you should have acted that way? And then I go drink because I really shouldn't have acted that way. That was pretty much the way I did things. Here we're going to do it a lot different. Here, John isn't acting the way I want. He's starting to agitate me a little. Here I feel it coming on because what am I doing? I'm continuing to watch out for this in step 10. And before I act, if I pause and say, you know what? I ask God, give me the right thought or action. I get God involved in this thing in the get-go. You know what begins to happen? My step 10 gets a lot cleaner. When I don't do this, I act and I don't pause and I don't get God involved and I jump down John's throat and I show him exactly how he should be living today like it's my job. And then I get to clean it all up and call my sponsor and ask God to remove that. And you know what? Here's the test. Don't do this and let me know how your 10th step worked out today. Then tomorrow, do this and let me know how your 10th step worked out for that day. You can try it. It's an interesting experiment. It works flawlessly. If I use that pause word, my 10th step gets clean. If I use that pause and do that prayer, and I get God involved, my 10th step gets clean. If I don't, spend time with God in the morning, spend time with God at night, and get God involved during the day, my 10th step is a nightmare. That's a promise. It's going to happen. It's as we constantly remind ourselves we're no longer running this show, humbly and asking ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. If you walked around in my first year of sobriety, that was my mantra going on inside my head. If you're wondering why I'm so quiet, I'm just going, thy will be done, thy will be done. It was a Savior. We are then much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. You ever wonder why you were so wore out back in the day? I mean, by noon I was wiped out. I start doing this stuff and all of a sudden I'm going through and it's 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh my God, look what I got accomplished today. I don't wear out as quickly. Proof's in the pudding. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. Shortest paragraph in the book. It works, it really does. Oh, this is all on 88. Underline it. It works, it really does. No shades of gray there, is it? Here's a masterpiece of understatement. We alcoholics are undisciplined. No. Say it ain't so. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we've just outlined. But this is not all. There's action, and more action. Faith without works is dead. And the next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. Here's where the book radically changes. Has anybody ever noticed this before? There's an audience the book talks to up to page 88. Then there's another audience it talks to from here on out. Let's see if we can catch it. It says, chapter 7, working with others. I don't know how to sponsor people. No kidding. Guess what? We got a chapter to cover that. It's called Working with Others. What a novel idea. How do I do it? I follow the directions. Look at this. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It doesn't say intensive sitting in meetings. What does it say? Intensive working with others. What does the word immunity mean? Anybody have the smallpox lately? Why do we not have smallpox anymore? Does anybody know? We all got that lovely scar on our shoulder, don't we? It ensured immunity from it, didn't it? If you don't ever want to drink again, what do you got to do? What did it say in the foreword of the second edition? What was vital to permanent recovery? Work one alcoholic with another was vital to permanent recovery. What did Debbie tell Bill? What was imperative? Work and self-sacrifice with others. There's no reading between the lines. There's no mystery here. If you want to know what I need to do, trust in God, clean house, and work with others. It's too simple. It's so simple, our minds can't grasp the simplicity. The mystery is shrouded by simplicity here. It's amazing. This is our 12th suggestion. Is it a suggestion? Do it. Go ahead. Don't? All right. Remember the ripcord. It's a suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. What does it say? Wait for the alcoholic to show up? It says, carry this message. Get off your butt and go find a drunk. It doesn't say wait for the drunk to appear. It says carry. The word carry has meaning. Pretty simple. You can help when no one else can. Have you ever wandered through life going, why am I here? Now you know why you are here. If you are an alcoholic, you have a mission statement. This is it right here. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Have you ever had a non-alcoholic talk to you before? Trying to tell you that they understand what you're going through? Oh, I understand. No, you don't. But have you ever had another alcoholic all of a sudden talk to you and you're going, oh my God, you know exactly what I am going through? Who carries the message of depth and weight? Another alcoholic. Who can help when no one else can? Another alcoholic. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on a new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish. You see a fellowship grow about you. Anybody noticing this word? To have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is a bright spot of our lives. Perhaps you, anybody notice the change here? Up to page 88, who was it talking to? We. Who's it talking to now? Me. It's pointing a finger at Michael Kelly and saying, you, mister, can help when no one else can. It's not talking to a group of people. It's pointing a finger at each and every one of us and saying, here is your marching orders. We all do this sort of thing. Remember what John touched on? His favorite line. Not some of us. Not some of us are made to make coffee and some of us are made to 12-step. No. All of us do this sort of work. That's how it worked. If you want to know how they were so successful, here it is. You can easily find some alcoholics by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. Trust me, these people are wore out. They're more than welcome to go, here's one right here we don't know what to do with. If you can't find a drunk, they're telling you exactly where to go. Because these poor people are just wore out, pulling their hair out, going, we don't know how to help these people. It says, don't start out as an evangelist or a reformer. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You'll be handicapped if you arouse it. Ministers and doctors are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish. But it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely qualified or uniquely useful to other alcoholics. So cooperate and never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. Here's the thing. Have you ever been in a room and two people were speaking, John and I, and all of a sudden half the room goes up to John and goes, I love what you just said. And the other half walks up to me and goes, man, you really got through to me. And we said the same exact thing. It's amazing. Some people only hear it from certain people. This person over here could be saying the same thing you're saying, but this person only heard you. For some reason, you made the connection. And he didn't this time. That's God's work. That's not our work. Our job is just to be in the position to be helpful, because who knows which person is going to get through to this next person. Remember that. So how do we work with another alcoholic? Well, it says when you discover a prospect for alcoholic, find out all you can about him. Don't go beating him over the head with this book. Oh, he pulled up a desire chip. Here, let me run it. You need to do this. No. My job is to find out all about him. Remember when they talked to Fred and they talked to Jim, they asked him what happened. They got as much information out of him as they could. Why? Because if he doesn't want to stop drinking, don't waste your time. The first thing we got to find out, do you honestly want to stop drinking? People walk into AA for a whole lot of reasons, don't they? I need a sheet of paper signed. I don't want her to leave me. It has nothing to do with stop drinking. Their butt's on fire and they want the flames out. Our job is to find out what is going on. It says, let's see here. You may spoil later opportunity. This is by is given. Where are we at? If there's any indication he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. A lot of times they've met the old school people through family members and that. Today we don't see that as much. Normally we're meeting the alcoholic one-on-one. Well, here's the thing. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, seriousness of his conditions, his religious learnings. We want to find out all about this person through conversations with him, why you need this information to put yourself in his place before you even jump off into this. We want to see how you would like to approach him if the tables were turned. What we're doing is trying to put ourselves in his shoes, trying to get a feel for where this guy is at. How are we going to approach him? How can we best lay this information out to him? You look at the next paragraph, it says, don't deal with him if he's very drunk. Have you ever sat down and fed a drunk a bunch of coffee? I mean, where they're just flat out drunk. I did that once, and there's nothing then you got a drunk guy that's going to be up for a long time. And I might as well have been talking to the tree outside, because the next day he's like, hi, have we met? So when do we wait for him? We wait for him at the end of the spree, or at least at a lucid interval. We're waiting to do a lot of conversation where he's going to remember some of it. How about that? What a novel approach. But if he's in a bad spot, if family, we may have to get in the middle of this thing. It's a judgment call. Next paragraph says, if you don't want to see him, never force yourself upon him. We're not there to cram this thing down somebody's throat. Let's face it. If they want it, you aren't going to beat them away with a stick. If they don't want it, you aren't going to be able to give it to them through an enema. End of story. Period. You can't force this thing onto them. But if they want it, oh my God, you're never going to get rid of them. You will not have to do much. They will be all over this thing. So, what do we do? If you look over on page 91, it says, call on him when he is still jittery. He may be more receptive when depressed. When were you most approachable? When did you want the most help through your experience? Right at the end of it, as you're coming to, and you're at that point going, oh my God, I don't ever want to do this again. What do I have to do? You give me 3 days later, and I've already devised a plan. You get me at that lucid interval where I'm just coming to and I don't have any plans, I will accept help without any problems. So it says, see your man alone if possible. Engage in general conversation. After a while, turn your talk to some phase of drinking. You notice we are not talking about Alcoholics Anonymous here. We are not talking about the solution. We are not talking about God. We are not talking about spiritual principles. What are we talking about? Drinking. It says, tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak himself. Let's face it. You going in there and saying you hate alcohol, the last thing this guy wants to hear. An evangelist, a reformer. You go in and you tell how alcohol worked in the beginning. On the outgoing flight of the boomerang, it was wonderful, wasn't it? But at some time out there, we started losing control and the boomerang started to turn. And problems began to pile up. And then on the incoming flight, that's where the horror came in. The terror, the bewilderment, the frustration, those deadly 4 horsemen, the loss of control, the inability to not drink. In all the things that came with it, the devastation of everything worthwhile in life. We walk them through the horror of alcoholism. Through our story, not through theirs. You know why? Because then they can relate. Oh my God, you are just like me. That's what's happened to me. I've been right there. In a general way, we don't have to get into details. In a general way, we lay it out. Think about it. If you want to tell your war stories, it's not inside a meeting. This is when your experience can help others. The identification process. Too simple. If you wish to talk, let him do so. You will thus get a better idea how to approach. If he is uncommunicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit, but say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. Underline that. We're not talking about solution. We're talking about the problem as we see it, our experience and our knowledge of the problem. If he's in let's see here. If he was in a serious mood, dwell on our troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. If he's in a light mood, tell him some humorous stories. Get him to tell some of his. Look at this. Underline it. When he sees you know all about drinking, the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. Do not call him an alcoholic. Remember when you were called an alcoholic and you didn't think you were one? How'd that work out for you? Not very good at all. We're going to tell them how you were a baffled lot, how you finally learned that you were sick. Give them account of the struggles you made to stop. The inability to leave it alone no matter how great the necessity or wish. It says we suggest you do this the way we have done in the chapter on alcoholism, chapter 3. Awesome information. If he is an alcoholic, and he will understand you at once. He will match your inconsistencies with some of his own. Here we go. In AA, you're not supposed to determine whether someone's an alcoholic or not. True or false? Read the next line. If you are satisfied that he is a real alcoholic, my job is to qualify the man. It told me right there. Is he or is he not, in my mind, through what I've heard of his story, the real deal? Or is he a hard drinker? If he is, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Here's where remember what they did to Fred? Once Fred conceded to himself, what'd they do? They even piled more heaps of evidence on him. They gave him a bad, bad case of alcoholism, didn't they? And that's what our job is. Next paragraph says, continue to speak of alcoholism as a fatal illness, a malady. Talk about the conditions of the mind and body. Down in the middle of the paragraph it says, but you may talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism. Why? Not to just blow him up about it and leave him hanging, give him a bad case of hopelessness and walk away from him, because you offer the solution. It says, even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he's become very curious to know how you got well. Once he understands that you weren't able to stop on your own, he's going to be sitting back going, well, how is it that you're not drinking and I am? That's where we want to get to him. Let him ask you that question if he will, and then you get to tell him exactly what happened. If he doesn't want to know, then we don't go any further. Remember, Fred, thanks for the information, but I got it from here. Okay, we're done. We're out. But if he's, okay, how do I stop? How did you stop? What do I have to do? Now we get him. Now we lay it out for him. Now we got one. We lay it out. We lay out step 2 for him, and we explain to him he can choose any conception of God. He can choose, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he's willing to believe in a power greater himself, greater in himself, and that he will live by spiritual principles. Later on in the page, it talks about this guy may be a very religious person. Most people are much more religious trained than I am. Me sitting there trying to come over and talk down to this man, Look what it says. It says, your prospect may belong to religious denominations. His religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he is going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. But he will be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and why yours seem to work well. He may be an example of truth that faith alone is insufficient, but look at this. To be vital, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. Let him see that you are there, not to instruct him on religion. There's no reading between the lines there, is there? So we've got that covered. Turn the page, and you know what? Here's where it goes. We're going to outline the program of action and lay it out. Tell him exactly what we did. How is this man going to know what lengths he's willing to go to if he doesn't know what lengths you went to get sober? Critical. You look over to the next page, and it talks about... How am I doing? Awesome. All right. We're doing good. Let's go back to page 94 because there's one line I want to bring up to you. In the middle of the line, in the middle of the page, it says, if your talk has been sane and quiet and full of human understanding, you have perhaps made a friend. How about that? Look at the next line. Maybe you have disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. I love that word. My job is to disturb him greatly about the idea of alcoholism. If there's one thing that John and I are really good at when we go to the treatment centers, we make alcoholism very disturbing. And all you have to do is tell the truth. Because it is. It's very disturbing. If you flip over to page 95, it's interesting because this line right here is used like a shotgun in Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he is likely to say you rushed him. Taken out of context, that means take a step a month and everything's going to be okay, isn't it? Where are we with this new man? You just met him. You are just learning about him. Your first visit, in the context of where that sentence was put, if you take pieces out of this book, out of the context that it is, yes, the 9-step promises are no longer the promises of the 9th step. They are just promises, like they're given to you with the desire chip. Out of context, out of where it's in the book, you can use it like a shotgun and use it for anything. In the context, it's the 9th step promises. You take these two sentences out of the context of where it's at, and people will use it as in, there's no need to hurry. See, it tells you in the book. No, it tells you on your first visit with a man, before he's even read this book or understood the information that he's about to be asked to do, you better not rush him. Look down about 10 lines down into that second to last paragraph, and look what it says. If he is sincere, he wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. You know what we've done at our group? Have you ever asked an alcoholic, here, read this book, and he comes back to you and he says, yeah, I've read it? Let me ask you. Do you think he read it? What are the odds? He may have. I'm not saying he hasn't. But are we inclined to exaggerate sometimes? Well, you didn't say all the book. I read the book. I read 3 sentences. That means I've read the book. We have first assignment sheets that go through chapter 5. Here, read up to chapter 5. Here's 50 questions that are going to ask you about your reading. Then we're going to go back over it and summarize. You know what? That way I know he's gathering the information before we proceed, because they told us before you make a decision, you better make an informed decision. If you rush him and he makes an uninformed decision, it will come back to haunt you, and he will be convinced that there's something wrong with AA and we're not doing our job. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. Look at the bottom of that paragraph. He's defying God. The desire must come from within. And I'm right back to you. If he's desperate enough, he's going to do this work. If he's not desperate enough, he's not going to do the work. Period. It's that simple. Flip the page. I love this. Don't be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Search out another alcoholic and try again. You're sure to find someone. What? I love that word. Have you noticed that? Desperate enough to accept this with eagerness, what you offer. We find it a waste of time chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. Anybody chasing him before? God, I wanted that guy to get sober so bad, and I tried. And you know what? The fact of the matter is there were probably 20 guys that were ignored and were not offered help because I was too busy chasing a guy who would not or could not completely give themselves to this simple program. Think about it. We're all guilty of it. You know, our emotions get tied up in it. But here they're telling you, the specific instructions. Look at the next paragraph. Suppose you are making your second visit. Now I've proven to you in the context of what that previous page said that that's when you're not supposed to rush them. But when you look at what it says, suppose you're making he has read this volume. Past tense, isn't it? Has read. And he is prepared to go through with the 12 steps of the program of recovery. Having the Spirit yourself, you can give him much practical advice. Let him know you're available if he wishes to make a decision, tell his story, but do not insist upon it if he prefers to consult someone else. Then, what do? We go through the steps quickly, just like they did back in old AA. And you know what? I'm going to give John the rest of the time and let him finish this thing out.
That was the emergency brake.
That was.
Get my head out of the dash. How many times have we heard in AA, well, I don't know how to sponsor? Well, they just told you how to do it. Read Fred's story, read that stuff, and it tells you how to do it, right? I've got a lot of stuff to cover, and I got a million things in my head, but I got to say this. When I'm doing this stuff, when I meet that newcomer and we're finding out and we're identifying this guy and I've qualified him, all this stuff, I just don't drop the book in his, and he's not, don't get the impression that he's doing, we don't just drop the book in your hand and say, read the damn thing. See ya. It don't work that way. It's a little more personal than that. I got guys that I've sponsored that don't know how to read. I got guys that I sponsor that can read well but don't comprehend a darn thing. I got to sit down and with them. But I got to give them the information. How can I ask you to go to any link to get what I got if you don't know what any link is? You may not be willing to get a sponsor. You may not be willing to do a 4-step. That guy may not be willing to make amends. But how can I say to you, are you willing to go to any link? Oh, I'll do anything. And then all of a sudden start them in the work and they got no idea that what's required of them. If you roll through my group, you will be held accountable. I am accountable to my group and to my sponsor. You know, I got my last Desire chip, and my sponsor told me some stuff to read, and we were going to hook up the next time we saw each other. And he told me that he was going to be speaking at a group the next night. I was to be there. I showed up early, excited that I actually made it. You know, my sponsor didn't even talk to me. Until after the meeting, he told me to read some more stuff. I showed up to our group the next night. He gave me some more stuff to read. He says, tomorrow night is Friday night, John, and since you came through Homeward Bound, you need to show up. I don't want you to speak. You ain't got nothing to say. I want you to show up with your big book, maybe some extra smokes, and I want you to pay attention to Myers and Kurt and Matthew and listen to what they have to say and talk to those guys in treatment. Okay? I love my sponsor to death. I don't think I put him on a pedestal, but I respect that man greatly. That man didn't give a rat's patootie if I had plans Friday night, if it fit into my busy little schedule. You know, I call him my second Thursday of sobriety. I call him up. I'm coming to the meeting. He said, great. On your way to the meeting, I need you to stop by Salvation Army and pick up Manny, Mo, and Jack. Get them to the meeting and get them back on time. Don't make them be late. Click. Didn't ask me if I could do that. Did that. My sponsor got me into the game. Something I never would have done. Because if you're a knucklehead like me, I spent all my time sitting on the back row of Alcoholics Anonymous trying to hear something from you that would somehow, by some miracle, keep me from picking up a drink that day. I wasn't there to bring anything to the group. I was there to suck whatever I could out of you so I wouldn't drink. I wasn't offering anything to my family or friends or anything like that. I was just trying not to drink. It was all about me. My sponsor got me in the game. People said, well, you know the book so well. Blah, blah. Practice. Homeward Bound in 1999 when I got sober, there wasn't a whole lot of people going to Homeward Bound, but there's like 50 people in treatment. Myers would take the hardcore old school guys, and me and Kurt basically split the room. I was going over the first part of this book 3, 4, 5 times a week. Every stinking day. When Michael got sober, he was up there doing the same thing. I mean, Sunday, our day of rest, right? Sunday, Us knuckleheads are up there from 1 o'clock to like 5 o'clock, and then we got to bust a move across town to get to 24-hour club and do a deal over there. Early in sobriety. Look, when I got sober, I couldn't complete sentences. I had to make a little outline of what was in the book so that I could learn the information. I didn't just... I'm nervous. Get me away from Alcoholics Anonymous and ask me to speak, and I ain't speaking like this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, bruh, you know. This is, people think, oh, you're so well. It's because I'm comfortable. I'm amongst my people. But my sponsor got me in the game. And if you're a newcomer and I'm working with you, you're going to get in the game. Get in the game or go away. I ain't got time for it. You can't get sober by osmosis. You can't get sober by these guys' fumes. You got to do the work. You got to take the action. They give us precise instructions on what to do it. Great stuff. I get a little story early on. I'm not sober very long, right? And this job that I thought was so, they were going to fire me. You know, I mean, I'm a knucklehead, so I get into fear and all this stuff. The job that was going to fire me, they didn't fire me. They promoted me. So now I got a little job. It's on Friday. It's the fall in Dallas, and it's kind of drizzly all day. I've been working my butt off, helping drunks and all that stuff. And it's a Friday night. We got homeward bound at 8 o'clock, right? And I get home late, and it's like 7 o'clock, and it's been drizzly all day. I'm kind of feeling kind of achy, you know what I mean? And I've been out in the kind of cold, damp weather all day. And my thought when I got to my house that day is, man, you know what? I need to take a shower, get cleaned up, and have some soup and some vitamins and stuff. And I really need to chill out tonight because I got a big weekend and I don't want to get sick. So I start to get cleaned up, and then I had a thought. A couple days before at our meeting, they would bring the guys from the treatment center to our meeting, and I talked to a couple of guys, and I'd given them some little red books, and I told them what to read, and if they would read what they read, I would see them that Friday night, and if we all were on the same page that I was going to work with them on Sunday. So I had a commitment to meet these guys, and I'm like, I was not very spiritual. I remember taking a shower, and I remembered that thought, and I'm like, son of a gun, rah, 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 rah. And I got out of the shower, and I'm like, all right, I'll go up there. And I'm like putting on my clothes, and it's just like the March of the Dead, you know. And I remember praying, I'm like, God, I don't feel good. You know, I'm getting sick, and I can't afford to be sick. Please make this time go by quickly. And I drive the couple miles, the longest drive of my life, drive the miles to the treatment center, right? And I get out, and my buddy Kurt comes running up to me. He's like, dude, I just got off the cell phone with Myers, and there's a huge wreck by their house, and they're not going to be able to make it. So it's me and you tonight. We got to do the meeting. And I'm like, well, Kurt, I can't do that. I can't be down in the meeting because I got like these 3 guys that I got to go through this step work with. And Kurt goes, holy crap. And I'm like, what? He's like, dude, I got 3 guys. And he says, okay, I got a plan. I'll introduce you to my guys, and you sit out here with on these patio benches, and you show them the doctor's opinion and stuff. I'm like, Kurt, I've done this 2 times. He's like, well, then we better pray. And so Kurt and I said a prayer. The knuckleheads come out, have a little smoke break. They all go into the big meeting. I got 6 guys. Kurt introduces me to his 3 guys, right? They're rough. They're like little big gangbanger types, you know, and they're rough guys, and they don't look too happy to see me. But they all got their books, and they've all said they've read and stuff. And so the 6 guys, we sit down there, and we got 1 hour. And I got my little outline, and I'm going through the book, right? And these guys are kind of, when we first met, they were kind of all tough and everything, right? But we start going through the book, the preface, the forward to the first edition, doctor's opinion, right? And these guys are marking in their book, like Larry, right? Marking in the book. They're on fire, man. And they're getting it, man. You know, they're like, now all the guys that weren't paying attention, they're paying attention. And we get to the end of that hour, and I tell them how me and my sponsor did my 3rd step. And all these guys, I mean, there ain't a dry eye in the house. And I said, guys, are we ready to do this deal? And they're like, yeah, we'll do anything. And so we got on this. This is where everybody has a smoke break. It's the concrete. There's cigarette butts everywhere. They don't sweep up the place. It ain't very comfortable. And me And 6 guys who normally would not mix, who normally on the streets would have probably fought each other, guys that would not mix, got on our knees, joined each other and bowed our heads. And I said a little prayer, and we went around the horn, and each guy did his little prayer. Again, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And we got up from that moment, and we're all hugging, and it's just beautiful. Feel the power stuff, right? Now, I don't do that. I was young in sobriety. I don't do it. It's a one-on-one deal, right? Technically, probably I made a mistake. But you know what I learned that night? Get off my butt and go help somebody. I could have stayed home that night. I probably wouldn't have drank. I would have been at my meeting, but I would have missed that experience. What I did is I trusted God. I took some actions, and God took care of me. I get to pass that on. And the more actions I take, the more faith that I can get. Look what he says here, page 128 at the bottom. Right at the bottom of the page. It's in the family afterward. 3 lines from the bottom. Like a gaunt prospector, belt drawn over the last ounce of food, our pick struck gold. Joy out of our release from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. Father feels he may have struck something better than gold. For a time, he may try to hug the new treasure to himself. He may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load which will pay dividends only if he minds it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product. I would like maybe a part of that to be on my... I don't want anything... I just want to say on my tombstone, he went to the mine every day. You guys will get it. I hope God keeps me hungry. I hope God keeps me hungry so that I can go find the newcomer. Because there's nothing better to see a busted up unit who everybody's given up on, to see them get this deal and catch fire and see them help somebody else. I can only get free if I give it away. It's addition through subtraction. I get full by getting empty. It's a huge, huge thing. Flip the page. About 10 or 12 lines down from the top. Because somebody mentioned, I heard a couple times this weekend, pink cloud, pink cloud, pink cloud. And the fellowship police will warn you about pink clouds, right? You're on a pink cloud. Look what the big book says. We have come to believe that he would like us to keep our head in the clouds with him, but that our feet should be firmly planted on this earth. Oh, God wants my head in the clouds, but you know what? God wants me to be humble and be here with my people. That is where our fellow travelers are. That is where our work must be done. Every day can be a pink cloud. My job is to carry the message. Don't let anybody dampen your enthusiasm. Shame on them for doing that. They don't know what's in this big book. If they take issue with that, tell them to contact me. I'll take the heat. Shame on them. Shame on us telling a newcomer, slow down, chill out, you're on a pink cloud. I'm on fire every day. Even when it's a bad day, it's a good day. I've had some rotten days in sobriety, but then I get a call from one of my knuckleheads, and they just got a job, or they just made an amend. Good stuff. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Look at the bottom of the next page, 132. 4 lines up from the bottom. Underline it. We have recovered and been given the power to help others. There's no such thing as a recovered alcoholic. We have recovered and been given the power to help others. Somebody tells you that there ain't no recovered alcoholic, tell them to read the damn book. Walk away. Don't argue with them. It ain't worth it. You may be right. Have a nice day. See ya. Right? My sponsor told me, because I got into an argument one day with somebody, my sponsor laughed at me. He goes, John, just tell him that you may be right, pat him on the shoulder, and bid him farewell. Or he can say this, My sponsor told me never to, a wise man told me never to argue with a fool because then I'd become one too. Now he says, John, I'm 85 years old. They probably ain't going to punch me. They'll punch you. So you might want to wait till you get a little older to say that, right? You may be right, folks. There ain't no recovered alcohol. Whatever. The book tells me over and over and over. This is the great stuff. Don't miss the buzz. This is the good stuff. This is the good buzz. Follow these principles. My group, when I got sober, when Michael got sober, it wasn't as big as it was now. It was catching fire, and there were some big book thumpers. They're still around there. They're still kicking butt. Myers and Cliff and Dara and Sandy, Ed, they're all kicking butt. But over the years, it's gotten a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, and there's literally people all over the place doing what we do. That is the fellowship that I crave. We come to our group and we study the big book. Is that all we do? No, because we take the information out of the instruction manual, the big book, and we take that information and we go out into the real world and we practice it. I can see the vitality of you guys here. Y'all are doing the same thing. You can see the vitality of my group because not because we're big book robots. We just go practice, try to do our best. Get in the game, mix it up. We'll make mistakes, sure. But we got a way out on which we can absolutely agree. Two more things and I'm done. We're done. All right? Page 100. Huge promise. Early on in sobriety, I had a great day. I accomplished more on one Sunday afternoon than I had done the previous decade. Mowed the lawn, washed the car, painted the kitchen, took a guy through steps 1, 2, and 3. It was awesome, man. I called Cliff and I was like telling him all about it. He goes, go read page 100. I'm early in sobriety. I didn't know what page 100 was. Here it is. Both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we'll realize the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. Follow the dictates of a higher power and you'll presently live in a new and wonderful world no matter what your present circumstances. And you can bet your life on that. Good stuff. Call my sponsor back. That's awesome. Great. Keep it up, right? I'll close with this. Go to page 164. This is how we close our meeting, and we'll close this conference with this. And again, on behalf of Michael and Wendy, thank you for having us up here. You've treated us better than we could have ever asked. And I hope that we get to do it again and hope we get to see you again. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.